All right, guys, I'm back. Anthony Ganji, host of Tier Talk, only show on the air dedicated to law enforcement. Don't forget, guys, follow us on multiple venues: iHeartRadio, TuneIn, YouTube, Spreaker.com, Player FM, Stitcher Radio. List goes on. Follow the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the show. Download my app. It's free. It's on iOS and Samsung. And don't forget, like my page. It's 24,000 strong, and we go live every 6 p.m. Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. live Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so real quick, I knew I was going to lose you guys, so I wanted to start fresh again. When we talked about administrative segregation, I just want to kind of reiterate that it's a needed tool. You know, the way we maintain control inside a correctional facility is we look at their privileges, and if they act foolish, we can take those privileges away. That's how we maintain control. That's humane, okay? Because inmates get used to the life behind the wall. So we kind of, if you're doing something foolish, we can take away the privileges, not their necessities, but their privileges. And that's key, guys. That's how we maintain control, okay? So for people that think, well, the inmates in ag-seg or solitary confinement, whatever you want to call it, that their needs are stripped, that's not the case, guys. We know that's not the case. Actually, that's where they're more attended to. They get programming, they get mental health. You know, it's to deal with what they have done. There's got to be some punishment form in regards to rehabilitation. I don't think you can rehabilitate without doing some form of punishment, because inmates have to know that the behavior they did was wrong. Correct? So there's got to be some level of punishment, and that's a good thing, because if punishment can deter, well, then guess what? If someone attacks staff, then you punish them, less likely that they will attack staff again, or less likely somebody else will attack staff thinking that the punishments are being lenient. Okay, and what I mean by punishment, yes, I mean removal. Punishment by removal. Let them earn back their privileges. You know, someone once told me that lifers have nothing to lose, and I always disagree with that, because lifers have gotten accustomed to the lifestyle within the prison. So they do have stuff to lose. Custody could take away a lot of stuff, you know, that can mess with their life inside prison. TVs, whatever it is, especially if they're acting foolish, okay? So in this regard here, when it comes to ag-seg, solitary confinement, it is a needed tool, because when everybody wants to sit there and focus on the one, we in custody, or we in corrections, have to focus on the many. And if we spend too much time, let's say you have one inmate that's constantly acting out, codes are being called left and right over this one inmate, then there's the rest of the population that unfortunately isn't getting the services they need, because every time we have a code, we have to shut down. So sometimes you have to remove the one so you can rehabilitate the many. And I believe that makes sense. I don't believe anybody's going to argue that. So what they got to do is they got to stop taking these stories of these extreme situations and generalizing that as if that's the norm, when we know that's not the norm. We know that's not the norm. Okay? So again, there is a need for punishment in regards to rehabilitation. I agree with that. Okay, I do agree with that. And it directly relates to part of rehabilitation, but it also relates to safety and security. You know, punishment deters, at least psychologically. You know, and we hope it does. But if not, we should still be following through. Again, but when you take an inmate to ag-seg or solitary confinement, it's not strictly punishment. They are being rehabilitated. They're not being forgotten about. If anything, they're getting attended to more. So that's one argument I want to mention. And I believe that's the right perspective. Again, the media, you know, they take things out of context, or they focus on one and generalize it as that's got to be a treatment in every facility across the country, or across the nation, or across the world. And we know that's not the case. We know that they take these extremes, they become generalized, and the public thinks it's the norm. Well, that's the uninformed. You know, so I'm informing you right now that's not the norm. And the reason why we do that is to maintain safe and secure running of the facility, which means that sometimes we have to remove the one so we can protect the many and continue our programming. Because you can't say, you know, when we start letting people out that, oh, well, you know, we're letting them out without getting properly programmed. But yeah, but you're also the same ones that are saying that we have to keep problematic inmates in general population. So there's a conflict there. How can we do that and run proper programming? You know, inmates, if they fear a threat, they can't rehabilitate, because their mind is focused on the threat and they're not focused on themselves. They're not focused on the programming. So part of what we do is, if there is a threat, we need to remove it, but yet we remove them to an area where they also receive help. Okay? We do that so we can focus on the many, and then we have those specialized areas that can take time and focus on the one. So again, don't complain If you're wondering why we keep on sending somebody to lock, that's problematic, and then you're going to complain later on why no one's getting rehabilitated. That's why. So your two complaints kind of are in conflict with each other. So that's one thing. Second thing is this. Okay? Listen, and this was a great idea that came to me through an inbox. Okay? We have some warriors out in Pontiac right now that are going through a lot of shit right now. An officer got stabbed in the head. Thank God he's okay. But there's been a lot of attacks, all right, at this facility, from what I'm being told. Okay? Again, it's from what I'm being told. Nothing's definitive here, but I listen to my front line. I listen to the front line when they have a concern. We listen to their perspective and we try to see what that concern is. So when I'm getting multiple messages saying that this is a concern, well, let's talk about it for a second. Okay, so they were talking about inmates getting released early, which we just mentioned, and I mentioned the importance of finishing your sentence. It's definitely important. Again, it just is. But on another note, we had a national incident that happened in Delaware, right? That got the attention of the media real quick, right? Because that's the story. That's a story for them that gets them ratings. That's what's trending. So, unfortunately, when that story is passed, corrections gets tossed back in the shadows again, and every subsequent thing that happens after that kind of gets lost, So, someone mentioned something here, which I think is very unique, is, in my opinion, okay, whatever happens to us should always be brought out to the public because we serve the public, right? We serve the public on a national level, and somewhere along the line, the attacks on law enforcement professionals, corrections, police, we don't get the national attention like it used to, and corrections definitely never really did. A few cases. But for the most part, police used to get crazy national attention. But now that it's starting to happen so much more frequently, unfortunately, it doesn't get the national attention it deserves. And then obviously corrections definitely is part of law enforcement, so they deserve that national attention as well. Okay, so what I thought is best is that because the national networks, now I'm working on something right now, guys, to give us that respect on a national level. Trust me, it's something I'm working on with a few people that are committed, a few sponsors, and we'll get something out there. A series that tells the stories of our fallen heroes on a weekly basis, and we'll work on that. A series that reminds people of the service that these first responders do. Reminds the public that you better recognize and respect them because they're risking their lives to protect us, to protect you. So the thing is, sometimes, and it just made me think about it. We had the Delaware riot where we lost a hero, Lieutenant Floyd. Okay, he was a hero, guys. He was a hero, much loved by his department. He was a great representative of who we are, both as professionals and also as human beings. Law enforcement professional, and he was definitely taken from us way too soon. Now the media jumped on that story because riot, national recognition, all this stuff, right? But now in my mind, every attack on us should have some form of recognition, only because it's where we are headed now, where you have liberals that are trying to change the perspective of how we view inmates, and that's kind of leaking into what we do now, which makes our job a lot more dangerous, makes us more vulnerable because we're interacting with the inmates a lot more. So having said that, the liberal perspective is changing how we do our day-to-day, and it's making our life a little bit more complicated, a little bit less secure, less safe. Having said that, we also have protests on the outside that are doing what? Trickling its way on the inside. The protests that are happening over whatever it is on the outside, I don't play politics, well, unfortunately, are finding its way behind the wall. And when we had that riot and you have the public pushing for the inmates, saying that the inmates are right, even though that we had lost a life at that point, you got to think about yourself, man. Think to yourself, what kind of perspective is out there about us? You know what I mean? And the perspective is obviously wrong, but how do we change it? And we can't change it until we understand the root of that perspective. Where has that perspective changed? And how do we go back and fix what that perspective needs to be? Because the perspective is wrong, and it's an uninformed perspective. So we need to definitely inform and educate the public of who we are and what we do. Okay, but having said that, because we're more vulnerable and and the job's more dangerous than it ever has been for us, our interactions, the rehabilitation over operations, and again, that's something we have to discuss one day. Operations should never be superseded by rehabilitation. It's rehabilitation has to fit within operations, and we know that because custody is the canvas where all art takes place. Without safety and security, rehabilitation cannot exist. So people have to remember that when you're implementing something that's regarded to programming, it has to be within the means of safety and security. That's why you can't implement programs without talking to frontline staff, let them tell you how these programs could work, what can make it work, because they'll work with you. They'll tell you what will make it work. But again, you need to talk to them. Anyway, I'm kind of running off tangents here, but okay, so what we need to do is sometimes we need to find a way to connect our story to the national stories. You understand that? You got to realize something, guys. Corrections does not work in isolation. Okay? It doesn't. What happens at one facility can easily happen at another. Guys, the riots that are occurring, Delaware is not the only facility that's going through riots right now. Fortunately, it was the only facility that we lost somebody from, but we're still seeing a trend of riots happening in other facilities. Just saw a little something at a juvenile facility. So, but these are incidents that are occurring that should get national attention, but they don't. But doesn't mean that we can't piggyback off them. You understand that? What I mean by that is, if the media wants to follow one story, well, we have to remind them that, okay, what happened in Delaware isn't just a Delaware issue. It is a national issue. So when we have the chance and the media gives us that outlet to speak our mind, we need to do whatever we can to bring a national light to those concerns. Don't just limit it to Delaware. So when we're specifically talking about the riots in Delaware, there's got to be a way that we can also promote a national perspective on that. Okay, there's got to be a way that we can promote a national perspective where if we mention understaffed facilities, well, that's not just in Delaware, that's pretty much everywhere. You know what I mean? So there's a way that we can piggyback off of these national events that get national media. Well, that's what we should do. And then what we should do after that is remind people that no facility works in isolation. So if what happens in Delaware, that can easily happen at other facilities. Okay? And we really have to do that, guys. We have to push that national perspective. Okay? I don't think we have to. Okay? So what I would like to do is to bring spotlight to us on a national level is when we have a story that gets that national attention, all of us as a group, as one collective voice, have to also not just voice our support and prayers for the people going through it, but our concerns about what can happen to us on a local level. Because that may also get the media to look left and right and not just directly at what's going on. Because remember, guys, they're short-sighted. Once the Delaware story was done, they believe everything's done, it's complete, we're good. No, you're not good. Because you kind of just stepped at in my opinion, it's a branch of a tree. You just kind of dealt with the branch without going to the roots to see where all of it originates. So my opinion is what we need to do is, while they're on that branch, we need to guide them down to the root. Kind of walk them down to the root and let them see, how it's spread out from that point, because it's just a branch. Tree has many branches. You can't tell me you look at one branch and you understand the whole tree. Can't do that. Because branches just kind of go off in any which way, and the only way we're going to understand everything is the root. To see where the branches head off from, you got to go to the root. It's like if you want to cure a disease, you don't just work on the symptoms. The symptoms are one thing, but the disease is what you got to work on, the foundation, where it originates. So what I would like to do is everything that happens to us on a local level can be looked at as, okay, it's local, yes, but it's part of a bigger issue, and we need to get that attention to the bigger issue, which gives us the damn national perspective. We're talking about making corrections law enforcement, correct? Well, we got that petition going around. That should have been an easy 10,000 signatures. It's not. It's taking its time. It's maybe over 100 and something or 200 signatures. Guys, these are signatures that should be happening immediately, but they're not. So how do we address that? Is it your training? Is it our own perspective? We don't know. But the thing is, it's about time we start getting to the causes and stop looking at the symptoms and start understanding what the real issue is. Because I also think a lot of it's internal, guys. I think we're our own worst enemy as well. I really do. I've gotten some messages back about certain pushes that to me are automatic, that should be done. And then I get the feedback from one person who, you know, literally it's just an argument. It just really doesn't make any sense. But the point is the argument exists. And that's coming from somebody with experience. So we have to address that as well. But in the meantime, these are just our concerns. If we can find a way to take local stories and make it a national issue, because it is, that's how we move forward. That's how we get recognized. And let's inform the public. Let's inform the public. If they start questioning their practice, let's tell them why that practice exists. You know, when I'm talking about solitary ag seg. You know, you want to focus on one, we have to focus on the many. You want us to focus on rehabilitating the many, then sometimes we got to remove the threat because it's messing us up. So again, I love you guys. Stay safe. These are just my thoughts. And let's send our prayers out to Pontiac, who is one facility that's going through a lot of issues right now. But again, same issues that we're facing on a national level. So whoever's doing the story on Pontiac, let's take it to a bigger level. Let's look at what's happening on a national level, and then we could direct the concern to something specific like Pontiac. What I don't want is, I don't want the specific concern to eliminate the general concern. We don't want to do that. We don't need that right now. We need the specific concern to highlight the general concern, if that makes any sense. All right, guys, I love you guys. Stay safe, and please keep the comments coming. Help my page grow. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Guys, I'm doing what I can, but I need your support. If we don't share, we don't get the views up, no one's going to take us seriously. Because remember, guys, it's not about quality, about what we say. It's about numbers. People respect the numbers. All right, guys, love you guys. Stay safe.